My name doesn't matter. What matters is what happened in my house. In the house I lived in for 41 years. The house where I raised my son. The house where my husband died. My home. It started the way these things always start, with something small. Something you almost don't notice. Something you tell yourself you are imagining because the alternative is too painful to accept. My son Marcus married Claire 3 years ago. I was happy for him. She seemed warm, attentive. She called me every Sunday for the first 6 months, asked about my health, brought food when she visited. I thought, finally, a daughter. The one I never had. Then the calls stopped. Not all at once, just less frequently. Every other Sunday. Then once a month. Then only when Marcus reminded her I was waiting. I told myself she was busy. People get busy. Marriage is an adjustment. I was being too sensitive. But then something else happened. Something that made me stop telling myself I was imagining things. I came home one afternoon. I had been at my sister's and found Claire in my bedroom, going through my wardrobe. Not frantically, calmly, methodically, the way someone goes through a wardrobe when they are certain they will not be caught. She saw me and smiled. Said she was looking for a scarf I had offered to lend her months ago, casually, as if it were completely normal to be in my bedroom, alone, going through my personal belongings without asking. I let it go. I should not have let it go. 3 weeks later, Marcus sat me down. He had a proposal. His exact word, proposal. He said their apartment lease was ending. He said the commute was difficult. He said, and I remember every word, he said it would make so much more sense for them to move in with me. Just temporarily, 6 months, a year at most, until they found something suitable. I said yes, because he was my son, and because I was 68 years old and living alone. And the house felt large and quiet in ways it hadn't when his father was alive. They moved in on a Saturday in March. By April, Claire had rearranged my kitchen. She said she was making it more efficient. She stood in my kitchen of 41 years and told me, with complete confidence, that the way I had organized it was inefficient. She moved things I had kept in the same place since 1984. She threw away items she described as clutter that I would have described as memories. I asked her to please consult me before making changes. She apologized, said, of course. Said she got carried away. By May, she had redecorated the living room. I came downstairs one morning to find my photographs, my wedding photographs, my son's school photographs, the picture of my late husband on our last holiday together, removed from the mantelpiece and replaced with prints she had ordered online. My photographs were in a box in the hallway, neatly stacked, as if they were things to be stored, rather than things to be seen. I stood in my living room, and felt something I had never felt in that house in 41 years. I felt like a guest. I spoke to Marcus that evening. He listened, he nodded, he said he would speak to Claire. 3 days later, the prints were still on the mantelpiece, and my photographs were still in the box in the hallway. Marcus told me Claire had been upset, that she had meant well, that she was trying to make the space feel like home for both of them, that I needed to give her time to adjust. I gave her time. By June, she had stopped cooking separately. She began making household decisions, grocery shopping, utility changes, maintenance calls, without consulting me. When I mentioned something needed fixing, she would say she had already arranged it. When I asked who had arranged it, she would name someone I did not know, a contractor, a handyman, someone she had found, someone who would send the invoice to her. The invoice. To her. In my house. I started keeping notes, dates, incidents, conversations. I don't know exactly why. Some instinct. Something my late husband used to say. If something feels wrong, write it down. So I wrote it down. July brought something I was not prepared for. I came home from church on a Sunday morning to find a locksmith's van outside my house. Claire answered the door before I could use my key. She explained, brightly, pleasantly, as if it were a perfectly natural thing, that they had changed the front door lock because the old one was faulty. She handed me a new key, a single key, for my own front door. That evening I sat in my bedroom, the one room that had so far remained mine, and I called my daughter. I have a daughter, Sarah, who lives 2 hours away. I told her everything. Everything from the beginning. The wardrobe, the kitchen, the photographs, the invoice, the lock. Sarah said, "Mum, I'm coming this weekend, and bring a camera." She brought 2, small ones, the kind you can hide. We placed them carefully, one in the living room, one in the hallway. We told no one, not Marcus, not Claire. We said Sarah had come for a weekend visit. We had a nice dinner. We laughed. We pretended everything was normal. Sarah went home on Sunday evening. On Thursday, I received a phone call from my bank. My savings account, the joint account I had held with my late husband that had transferred to my sole name after his death, had been accessed. Not emptied, but accessed. Someone had requested information about the account. Someone had asked about the process for adding a second account holder. Someone had given my date of birth and my address correctly. I hung up the phone. I sat very still for a long time. Then I went and looked at the camera footage, what I saw on that footage. What Claire did in my living room on the Tuesday afternoon when she believed she was alone in the house. I will not describe in full detail here. But I will tell you this. She was on the phone for 47 minutes. And she was not speaking to a friend. She was speaking to someone about my house. About the ownership of my house. About what it would take to have the ownership of my house assessed. About what rights a person might have if they had been resident in a property for a sufficient period. She used the word resident. Not guest. Resident. I called my solicitor the next morning. My solicitor called Marcus. Marcus came home that evening, white-faced. He sat across from me at the kitchen table. The kitchen table I had bought in 1989. And he looked at me as if he was seeing me clearly for the first time in months. He said, "Mum, tell me everything." So I did. With the notes I had been keeping since June. With the bank call. With the footage. There was a silence that lasted a very long time. Then Marcus picked up his phone and called Claire. He said, "I need you to come home. We need to talk." And then he said the words I had not expected. Not from my son. Not ever. He said, "And start thinking about where you're going to go, because it won't be here." Claire moved out 10 days later. My photographs went back on the mantelpiece that same afternoon. Marcus changed the lock himself. He handed me both keys. Then he sat down at my kitchen table and cried. And I held my son, and I let him cry, because that is what mothers do. And then I said, calmly, because I was very calm by then, I said, "I need you to tell me something honestly. Did you know?" He looked at me, and he said, "No, but I should have noticed sooner. And I am sorry." That was enough. It was not everything, but it was enough. I am telling you this story because what happened to me is happening to other people, right now. In houses where someone feels like a guest, in families where something small is being ignored, because it is easier than the alternative. If something feels wrong, write it down. If someone is in your home and slowly making it theirs, write it down. Trust the instinct before you need the evidence. I am 71 now. My house is mine again. My photographs are on my mantelpiece. My son calls every day. And my kitchen of 41 years, is exactly as inefficient as I like it.